Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to the debrief with your friends here at Sandals Church. We are here with the PMB, Pastor
Yes,
Matt Brown,
ma'am.
answering some real, oh, dang it. I get why it was hard for Party now. Giving real answers to tough questions all about the Bible and specifically men and women this week.
Yes.
So I'm excited.
That's right. Yeah. I want to know, what was it like for you? You said you described your household growing up all boys,
Yeah.
and for Tammy it was all girls.
Yeah.
So give us a little window into that.
Well, man, you know, like we used to wrestle with my mom. I mean, my mom was, I think my mom was probably a tomboy in the. I'd have to ask her that, but she was very athletic, very outgoing. She's high 8 on the Enneagram, high 8, high 2. So a very aggressive woman for her time, which I think played really well into the raising of boys. She was perfect mom for boys, but. You know, what that means is we just got away with things, you know, farting, burping, things that my wife found appalling. And not that girls don't fart, they do. It's just, it's far more deadly and secretive.
It's not a celebration.
Yeah, it's not a celebration. It's an extermination when women fart.
It'll be a bumper sticker. That's
yeah,
good.
It's like, who just killed that animal? Well, no one. Okay. So yeah, it was, you know, I just literally... And my mom would challenge me, you know, call me her little male chauvinist and stuff like that. And I think that strong males tend to be chauvinists, right? I'm proud to be a man. I'm proud to be, this is who I am. And so you have to learn to appreciate and love women and not see them as less than. And it's important. Again, that's why, you know, men need the word of God. And of course, chauvinists can use the word of God to their own ends, but, you know, Satan used scripture to his own purposes. And so you've just got to understand that the Bible is only abused when it's in the hands of abusive people. And so, and that's what's so sad and why many strong women and feminists reject the scripture because it's been used that way. And it's like, man, just about everything's been used. So, but I grew up in that. Tammy grew up in a house of girls. She also grew up, her dad was just, I think, a great dad for girls, very connected, you know, very loving, loved to have a good time. He was just very different from my dad. Very emotionally nuanced, like cries at movies, you know, just real connected. And I immediately gravitated towards him. I was like, man, I want to be more like this guy. I learned real quick that, you know, there was a deficit in me of relating to women. And specifically, you know, Tammy made me aware of that in our first year of marriage. And at first, you know, I think I do what a lot of men do is I was like, you're crazy, you're moody, you know, and I make all these lists of excuses. But then you got to come to the point to where, okay, what do I want? And I want to be married. I you know, I didn't believe in divorce. I don't believe in that. So I've got to start listening to what she has to say. And I remember specifically going out and praying and asking God for help. And saying, God. And so, you know, I knew that I needed help in parenting. I knew I wasn't ready to be a dad. I had no idea how unprepared I was to be a husband. I just wasn't. And again, one of the lies we tell ourselves is men think women won't change when they get married, and women believe that the man absolutely will change when he gets married. And so that creates a huge conflict. And so, you know, we fought like cats and dogs. My wife's a counterphobic 6, which is a lot like the 8 on the Enneagram. You know, she attacks everything she's afraid of. She also is high 1, so she's got a high standard for herself and everybody else.
Sure.
And so it was really challenging for me, you know, as a 3, a liar, you know, all about personality and wooing people, but terrible in the details and follow through, right? Those things are really ugly on my part. And, you know, we've both had to grow, not just in the differences of our gender, but in the differences of our personality. And I said this weekend, you know, opposites attract. And that's not just with gender, that's also with personality. And so we need to remember that, you know, like I've told you guys this before, I can't stand hanging out with people that are like me. It's like, geez, you're high maintenance. And so, yeah, I find, you know, 3-wing 4s to be emotionally just taxing and then relationally competitive. Like we're both trying to one-up each other. And it's just like, this is just really not working out, you know, because I have to win. So, so I like to chill out with 9s. You know, they're just like, win whatever, buddy. I'm not even playing your game. So yeah, that's why Steph and I are friends. She's like, you go be the big deal.
Go do your thing. Let me know what you need.
So when it comes to this whole topic of honoring your father and mother that you taught about this weekend, how did you guys navigate some of that with your background being all boys, Tammy's background being all girls household? How did you define what it looked like for your kids to honor you guys?
Well, I don't think we did it very well at first. You know, Tammy and I are not the model for how to build a great marriage, and that's why, you know, we do 8 weeks of premarital counseling.
Yeah.
Before Tammy and I went to premarital counseling, and he may have been the worst therapist in the history of the world. Like,
Not a
this
sandals guy.
this guy was so bad. Like, I think he hated his life, hated his profession, and I don't think he liked us. Like, it was really
He'd heard too much.
It was really, really bad. And Tammy and I had some significant issues to work through, which, you know, if I would have had some wisdom, we could have gone back and worked on those. But again, you know, the one's deepest fear. So here's the challenge for the one in counseling: is they're terrified it's their fault. So that's really, really hard. It's really, really hard for my wife to sit in counseling and hear that she did something wrong. That's her. Then she's a 6, right?
Yeah,
So fear is her core fear. Well, the truth is, it can't all be my fault, right? I mean, I'm probably the more dominant personality, but I can't be responsible for everything. And so that was really, really hard. So we had a really, really bad experience. But, you know, I think that we've learned over time how to honor each other. And actually, it goes back maybe 8 years ago when I really felt like the Lord spoke to me. I went to a conference in Hawaii, and the topic was honoring. And this not only changed me and Tammy's life, but this has changed our church trajectory's life. You know, you've seen the illustration in Dan Zimbardi's office, the honor principle.
Culture of honor. Yeah.
Culture of honor. And so that all comes from me going there and just, you know, I didn't like the guy. The guy was, it was Lisa Bevere's husband. He is aggressive. So you think Lisa Bevere is aggressive. He's aggressive. He's opinionated. He's a strong male. I don't know if he's an 8 on the Enneagram. I would think Lisa is. But he is equally as strong. And at first I kind of wrote him off because, you know, he's a shouter, or at least he was in that one small, you know, setting that I had.
Yeah.
And then the Holy Spirit just worked me over with his content and what he was saying. And I realized I do not honor. And so we got home, or we were driving home, and I said, hey, when we get home, you know, back to the hotel, I need to talk to you in the bedroom. She was like, okay, that's weird. So we go in the bedroom. I sat her on the bed, and I got on my knees, and I said, I want to repent for not honoring you, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I am totally sorry. And so then we got in the jacuzzi with some of the pastors that are with us at the conference, and I was sitting in the jacuzzi, and I said, man, that conference just really challenged me. And I asked one of the pastors, I said, what'd you get out of it? And he said, I just really need to let people honor me. And I was like, oh, I don't think you heard, I don't think you heard the same thing that I heard.
Yeah.
And then he asked me, he said, what'd you get out of it? And I said, I need to honor people more. I need to honor people more. And so I just was really convicted.
Well, because then you're setting the tone, and that's creating a culture.
Yeah. Well, and I remember, like I said, we went through a whole honor series, I think, after that. And I remember that was a turning point for Sandals Church, for sure.
Yeah, no, and our church started growing. And I mean, God does not create a house of dishonor. He just doesn't. And so that starts in the family. So think about it in our church. You know, Tammy and I are mom and dad in the church. That's the reality. We function as the mom and dad. We function as the primary husband and wife. And if we're not healthy, the church is not healthy. And that's one of the things I would say. Sandals Church is healthy because Tammy and I are healthy. And man, you want to screw Sandals up, screw Tammy and I up. And so that's just a real big thing. So a lot of people in our church have dysfunctional relationships and marriages, but they have something they can look at and say, okay, that's a healthy marriage. I can be like that. And then Tammy and I, here's what I would say is we have worked hard to get it right. And we've made efforts. I mean, you know, 3 years ago, we did 3 days of counseling. I mean, we spent $3,000 a day on counseling, some of the best counselors in the world. We sat there. You know, Tammy dealt with her issues. That's when I famously talk about. Then all of a sudden I realized, okay, I've got some real wounds here, some real issues that I have to deal with. And then also Tammy's willingness and calling to study the Enneagram, I think, has been transformational for our relationship. So the Enneagram is something that I've been aware of for years. Tammy was not interested in it. She has become not only interested in it, but she's more of an expert on it than I am now, because it's been revolutionary for her in understanding her.
Giving language to things.
Yeah, because a lot of our issues in marriage are not just gender, their personality, their experience, their past wounds, their motivations. And so you need to really try to understand that. And you know, Tammy and I, the fact that we're married today is a miracle of God. You know, every great marriage is one big fight away from divorce. And you just need to understand that, I mean, anger is such a powerful motivator. It is probably equal to falling in love. Anger is that powerful. So just think about the emotions that you feel when you fall in love and you're like, I would do anything for this person. Anger is its equal, and it's, I would do anything to get out of this relationship, including lie, cheat, steal. Like, I mean, it creates, you know, powerful motivation, and it's dangerous. It's really, really dangerous, and it will cause you to do things that you would normally do. And so I would say 7 years ago or 8 years ago, you know, it's so funny. I was actually at that conference because I was we were talking about, you know, who have been the men in your life. I was at that conference because I was trying to get this pastor to mentor me. And let me just say this to all you men. You can waste your whole life looking for a mentor, and you can get bitter and upset and angry, or you can just say, God, I want you to mentor me, and start allowing the scriptures to mentor you. Get in a group with guys that are struggling and that want to become like Christ and mentor each other. I have been just so disappointed by guys that have great platforms. They write great books. They're just not deep people.
It's not what you thought it might be.
So, I mean,
they don't have the capacity to actually mentor a person because they're so focused.
And he actually told me, to his credit, you know, he said, Matt, we're all treading water. And so what he was saying is, I don't have time to mentor you. And I'm like, dude, I'm pastoring one of the fastest growing churches in America. I need help. I mean, this is beyond me. And so ultimately what I had to do is I had to depend upon God. I've had to build my own great team, and I've had to really build and invest in my marriage. And I think if you can just say those three things, and I wish, you know, especially all of you men and women, if you could just stop for a second and say, what are our core values? And your core values, literally, right, you start with love of God. You got to start there. Because I said this week's sermon, we cannot be equally united if we're not equally submitted to God. So that's where you have to go is, okay, I'm going to go to God and I'm going to submit to him. So I'm going to love God, and then I'm going to build into my marriage. I'm going to care for my marriage, right? I'm going to care for my family, and then I'm going to care for my church family. Like, it has to be the next thing. Like, it always breaks my heart when people leave their church family for a job. Like, let me ask you this question. Would you leave your biological family for a job? And people are so quick. And here's what they say is, oh, I just wish there was a Sandals church there. Well, I wish that Sandals church was a bigger priority for you. So you would, because what they're saying is money, promotion, bigger house, like different location is more important than my spiritual family. That's the trump card. And
well, I think people don't realize how much they're actually relying on their church family until they're away from it, for sure.
And it's devastating. And so that's what I would say is really, really take the time to invest. Say that God has intentionally designed my male husband to be different. God has designed him to see things differently. God has designed him to be different, and I need to appreciate and respect that, right? So ladies, women must respect their husbands. That's the word. The Greek word is phobia, where we get our English word phobia. Fear. And so, and our culture has a fear of men. But it's an unhealthy fear. It's an unholy fear. And so we need to have respect for men and lift them up and say that. And right, same way, husbands, you know, you must love your wives. And then the word hallel, we must praise them. And think about, praise is really close to worship. And guys get this wrong. Like, we worship the female body. Like, that's where pornography comes from. And so much of sin is so close to righteousness. So instead of loving my wife's body, loving my wife's personality, loving my wife, like I get addicted to porn. I'm so close to the right thing, but it's the wrong thing. And I love her and appreciate her. And, you know, it's just so important that we hallel our wives, that we praise her. And that's not easy because she's different.
Right.
You know, like my wife woke up today in a funk, man, and I don't know what's wrong. We're going to talk about it, but you know, so I'm scrambling. I'm like, okay. You know, we're at DEFCON 4, not certain why, I don't know what's going on, and we'll have to revisit that. But certain things set her off, and certain things set me off, and they're not the same things. They are not the same things, and so, you know, it's just following up and saying, okay, what's going on, and then how can I help you? So something's causing my wife, I would guess, because she's high 6, high 1, to feel insecure or to feel like things aren't perfect or right. And so the healthy side of the one, right, is the reformer. So how do I help reform our household, our life? And what she was saying is she's feeling cluttered. And some of that's on me. I got way too many books at home. You know, my office that I work out of, I have an office here, and you guys know I'm never there.
Right.
So my office is really my bedroom, which is not fair to her.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to reevaluate that because it's really cluttered and she doesn't like that. So, but what could happen is, right, she sets me off, then I react as a man in anger, in power, makes her feel intimidated. She's scared, right? Now we're in trouble because when men get angry, they're scary. And so every guy, you need to know that when you're angry, you have to talk lower. You have to watch your hands, watch your gestures, because the wife is, in most instances, I mean, we got some CrossFit ladies in our church, you know, that they could probably do some damage, but in most instances, you're so much more powerful. You have to be so careful, and know that you know, that fear that holy fear that God's placing in you, that respect, really is for the kids. The kids need to know. You know, I love playing with Dad the Lion, but
boundaries,
boundaries.
Well, what you're describing, I love that, is ultimately you're describing a house of honor.
Yeah.
That you are willing to have the type of questions. You're willing to process things. You're willing to look at, all right, we're not just going to, you know, scoot things under the rug, but as a house of honor, this is what we're going to do. And the example that sets for your kids, for, you know, any couple that's practicing this and willing to walk through these things. It's not, hey, mom, dad, get it right every time. And we don't ever mess up. And if we do, we're going to be secretive about it and you don't get to know, but they get to see that process. But obviously not everybody has the benefit of, you know, a husband and a wife, or, you know, there are a lot of single couples or I'm single parents, not single couples.
Yeah, single couples. I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, it's a new
It's a
one.
new thing. Yeah.
2019. No, single parents, which we actually got some questions from. This first one from Alex says, I was raised in a house full of women and no males. My father was rarely around. I am now married with a baby girl in the house. My question is, how do I, as a male who, with no good male examples to follow, lead the females in my house to God and by his principles? Where can I go to absorb and learn how to be firm when needed, but also gentle when required? He didn't have an example.
Yeah.
He didn't know. He didn't see this lived out. So
so the first thing I would do is I would get in a men's group, an advanced group at our church with older men, and just learn and just say, guys, I'm looking for strong Christian men, because not every Christian man is a strong man. And so you need to learn, and then you just need to be humble and ask questions and just say, you don't know what you're doing. And so here's the reality, guys. A lot of us are married to women that are stronger than us, more spiritual than us, and they're more qualified to lead. And so you just need to say that. Look, honey, I want to be the leader someday. I'm just not there right now. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I'm going to do everything I can. And remember, leadership is not domineering. And so, ladies, whenever you hear this, that God has designed the man to lead, you need to run immediately to the definition Jesus gives of leadership. Constantly, right? For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as ransom for many. Mark 10:45. Do not, lead as, what is the word? As the Gentiles do, who lord it over them.
Right.
That is not how Christians are to lead. We lead through service and we lead through sacrifice. And so, guys, that means you die first. You give up first. You do that. Ladies, you got to be very, very careful, because you can become controlling and powerful and manipulative, and you've got to watch your own issues in that process, because when one gender wins, we both lose.
Right.
So if the man is making all the decisions, the marriage is done. If the woman is making all the decisions, the marriage is done. How do we make these decisions together? And so, I'll give you an example of an early time that affects all of us, where I had to submit to Tammy. So I wanted to plant a church. That's what I wanted to do. She said, fine, but we're not leaving Riverside. So I submitted to that, and we planted Sandals Church, which is great. Here's the reality. So much of our early marriage problems was the fact that she didn't leave and cleave. She didn't leave her mom and dad. That was an overarching threat. Like, I can go back to my mom and dad's house. So she still had that. She had an out, which made me feel very vulnerable.
Sure.
And so, she didn't do that, though. I mean, she just threatened. She never did it.
Right.
But it was still scary. And, and then I mean, that's just one example where I submitted to that. But ultimately, I think it was a good thing in the long term because her dad died of cancer a couple years later. But what would have been better for us would have been to go somewhere and have to really depend upon each other. But I was really, really unhealthy, man. I had a lot of issues, and she should have dumped me in college. Like, that's what I tell her all the time. I was like, you should have kicked me to the curb, because I just really thought I was pretty special. I mean, there's just no way around it. Yeah, I don't know how to say this, but I'm kind of a big deal. Ron Burgundy is my name. So, and that's just a really unhealthy place to be. And I'm sure that, me feeling that way affected how I treated her, and then affected how she felt about how I felt. So, just understand that it's not about one sex winning. So, the battle of the sexes, right? The gender wars, that stuff kills marriage. The two shall become one flesh. They're united into one. Let's talk about our marriage. And so that's where his needs, her needs falls apart. Because that's still tennis. You're on this side, I'm on this side. And what God wants, it's not about his needs, hers needs, it's about the marriage needs. What does the marriage need? Well, the marriage needs is both to be loved, both to be, cared for. And how do I do this? And so when you can talk about that, and it's for the benefit of the marriage, you can talk about, I think here's one of the lies, is that we believe that the greatest issues in marriage are sex, parenting, and money. That's not the biggest issues. The biggest issues is talking about sex, marriage, and money. It's communicating. And it's saying, so when I come at it and I say, Tammy, here's where I'm coming from sex. Here's where I'm coming from finances. Here's where I'm coming from for our kids. That's a dangerous place to come from. What we have to do is we have to be united. We have to be together. And we have to parent, and we love our kids the same. We love, we have to come as mom and dad, and kids figure that out. And that's the thing you need to know. Your kids know who, who to go to. And here's the thing is, man, if you don't know who the leader is in your house, just go ask the dog. Literally, the dog will tell you who the leader is, and the dog doesn't care. And if the dog only comes to the kids, you got a big problem. You got a big problem. It's funny, dogs know. There's the pack leader. Isn't that funny that the dog can know what we're oblivious to?
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, that's good. I mean, there is a good question in there as far as it sounds like he wants to grow in this, absorb and learn how to be firm when needed, but also gentle when required. And you mentioned sort of your process of wanting to find a mentor and realizing, man, you need, like, Scripture is really your primary mentor in that, in the Holy Spirit mentoring you. But also you mentioned getting around other guys that are also sort of figuring some of these things out. I know for me, some of my closest friends are just a little bit beyond where I'm at in parenting. And man, it's so amazing getting to see, oh, that's another way of thinking about that. I hadn't thought about that. Oh man, that's good. Or what did you do with this? That's really,
absolutely
really crucial.
So I would get with that. And the other thing is, like, discipline together. And so, that's good. I think the wife is going to typically, and again, there's always somebody that doesn't fit the norm, but I'm trying to preach to the norm. I don't know if you guys weren't at Hunter Park, but the 11:45 service, all these women were like, no, and I'm like, I finally just said, okay, maybe not you. I mean, this woman literally is disrupting the sermon because she doesn't agree with my point. But here's the thing.
I never get to be there when that happens.
Yeah, women tend to be more empathetic. But here's the thing is they feel used. They get exasperated because they keep trying to please the child. And at the end of the day, the kid's a kid and needs boundaries. So then the mom loses her mind and can't disengage, and things get crazy. And we see this in lesbian relationships, marriages. Man, they get crazy because by the time it gets to the conflict, it just goes,
there's so
boom.
much more built up.
Yeah, there's so much built up there. It gets nuts, and then there's abuse that takes place. And I mean, I've seen this firsthand with gals who are gay in our church, and it just, I mean, we hear a lot in our culture about men abusing, but it happens that way, and it gets dark, it gets crazy. And so my wife, when she gets done, man, like, you're not ever watching TV. You're never going outside. Like, you will never get an allowance again. I'm like, whoa. You know, how is that
Yeah.
enforced? How can we enforce that?
Yeah.
What guys tend to do is disengage. Remember the Incredibles movie?
yeah.
What's the dad's name? Mr. Incredible. But he has a name.
He does.
I would
Because
just
remember
watched
the
this.
kids
I
are
should know
running around
this.
and she's going, engage, engage,
And
engage.
he lifts the table up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Engage,
right.
engage. And so husbands,
That's
men
right.
tend to disengage. And part of that is because, guys, if you're the primary income earner, and that's less and less nowadays, you need time to decompress. But it needs to be a period of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It can't be 2 hours.
Right.
Where you decompress and then you go, okay, now I'm going into dad mode. I'm going into husband mode. How can I help you? And she's exhausted and exasperated because the kids are nuts.
Yep.
Like they're nuts, man.
That's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
And now we're all afraid, you know, to let them play outside because they're going to get kidnapped or, you know, and let me just put your minds at ease. Every time a kid's killed or kidnapped, it's almost always somebody they know. It's mom,
Does that
dad.
put you at ease? I mean, maybe a little bit.
Well, like we're all afraid.
It's
We've
gonna
all
be
watched-
random.
We've all
A
watched
stranger
the
gonna-
I
Ted
see what you
Bundy,
mean.
the Ted Bundy stuff
Yeah.
on Netflix.
Oh, geez, yeah.
It's almost always somebody you know.
Right.
Like that investigation that's going on in Corona, the 8-year-old that's missing.
Oh, yeah. That
Right.
was,
They're-
it was
they're-
the mom. Yeah.
Or
Well, you
Abducted
think-
in Plain
the
Sight. If you
boyfriend,
watch that on
right?
Netflix,
Yeah. Yeah. And so,
Yeah, don't watch that.
don't watch
but
it.
because we're afraid to let our kids out of our sight,
Right.
they're always with us.
Yeah.
So my mom and dad used to be like go. We were
Oh, yeah.
in everybody's house. We played
That's
in the
so
whole
true.
cul-de-sac.
I wasn't
Like-
allowed to come in until it got dark.
Yeah.
And like actually dark.
Yeah.
Like, no. It's not dark enough yet.
And nowadays, think about it. Kids never leave their house or their room.
So true.
Yeah.
And that's why you're with your kids all the time now, and you need a break.
Yeah.
Like you need a
Yeah,
break.
that's good.
Yeah.
And so, like, I used to take my girls when they were little, and Tammy would be like, I'd come home from work, and she's like, they're driving me nuts. I was like, okay, girls, outside. And I would make them swim laps in the pool.
That's
And they
good.
hate it. I'm like, nope, another one. No, and I literally would make them tread water until they almost drowned because their issue was energy.
Right.
It's not that they were
It's an
just
outlet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they got to get it out. This is terrible. I would play fetch with my children. I would take the ball, I
You just
turn it
call
into a
it
game.
catch.
Well, but I would throw it. You got to go get it. And then I would intentionally throw it to the left or the right so that Kennedy would have a chance.
So yeah.
But the truth is, they had been inside all day.
Yeah.
Men tend to play. Men are more likely to take a kid to a park. Men are more likely to play a game with a kid. It's just
Oh,
the
yeah.
way we're biologically wired.
Yeah.
And so when the kids are cooped up in the house all day long,
Yeah.
the mom's going nuts. Like I came home, I kid you not, I'll never forget this. I came home and I'm like, Tammy, where are you? And I go into our bedroom. She's in the bathroom. So I think she's sick, right? Or she's got diarrhea or something. You know, I don't know what's wrong. The girls are banging on the door. Mom, mom, mom. She locked herself in the bathroom
Yeah.
because she didn't want to be touched.
Yeah.
She just literally, she was going insane.
Yeah.
And the kids, like, I'm like, we have a 2,500 square foot house. And they're literally
right there.
at the door
Yeah.
playing their Polly Pockets. They play with Polly Pockets. And I'm like, give your mother a break. And so I did this. Guys, here's a great way to serve your wife. So this is a little Matt Brown Kung Fu.
What do you got?
Marital Kung Fu.
Let's do it.
So it's Valentine's Day, right? So,
Oh, yeah, I think you should.
so guys are thinking, right, yeah, tonight's the night. It's going to happen. Women are thinking, oh, God, tonight's the night. It's got to happen. So I come home from work. Or no. I had Tammy pick up the kids from daycare that day. She came home from work. I did rose petals all the way up to our bedroom, which she rolls her eyes. First thing she sees it. Seriously, she did. She rolls her eyes. I walk her upstairs. I have a hot bath ready with her favorite, what do you call it? Bath bombs.
Oh yeah.
So it's all suds. It's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
hot.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
all ready to go. I have music playing. I have her favorite magazines laid out. And I put a note in a bottle, a love letter in a bottle. And I left and took the kids for 4 hours.
Nice.
That's a beautiful
Nice.
gift.
That is kung fu. That's good.
It's kung fu.
Because she's thinking.
Because she's
here we
thinking,
go.
oh, he just wants booty. That's all he cares about, right? That's what she's thinking, which
Long game.
long game.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for. But I left and I took the kids and
Yeah.
I gave her the night off, and we didn't come
That's
home
good.
until 10 o'clock.
Oh, that's
So on
good.
Valentine's Day, we didn't come until 10 o'clock. We came home. I intentionally drove until the girls were out, passed out in the car.
So it's just a transfer then.
It's just a transfer. I put them in their beds,
Yep.
and I got jumped. It was awesome.
Good.
Dude, it was
See, long game.
long
Like,
game,
you were-
bro.
Long game.
Like, I'm no
That's
fool.
what you're.
good.
Yeah.
I'm no fool. But
that's
if
good.
it didn't happen, if she was snoring in the bed when I got home, it's still a win for me.
Yeah.
Because, guys, it's not about the moment. It's about the marriage.
Yeah.
That was good.
That's good.
Well,
That's what
that's
it's about. And I had to figure that
like
out. And
that.
so I had to, like, my wife's high 6, didn't trust me with anything.
Mm.
Took me 10 years to take over the finances in our marriage.
Yeah.
10 years. Now she doesn't even know how much money we have, where the accounts are, nothing, because I've proven myself trustworthy.
Yeah.
I don't bounce checks. We got money in savings.
Right.
You know, we gave more money last year than any year previously to the Sandals Church.
So she
to
doesn't
charity.
feel stressed out about it.
No.
Not knowing
Because
and
she-
being able
because
to
she's
just
trusting.
trust.
Yeah.
That's
And-
cool.
And
Which
so
is
much,
big, I think, on her side to
Yeah.
release control. Because I think that's what women struggle with so much is like, well, everything needs to be perfect. Like, I'm going to keep my hands in this. I need to and that doesn't allow men
and
to
so
lead.
yeah, and we went to counseling. And so, ladies, I'm not saying the guy needs to handle the finances. If he's terrible at finances, he does not need to handle the finances. So, guys, you need to say, as the leader of this household, I am giving up all authority over over money, because all that's going to do is screw up your marriage. Like, if you're not good at it, like, the person that should control the money is the person that's the best with the money.
Right.
Period. Because it's
Right.
not about you and me; it's about the marriage. You know, who can do this? And so, here's the difference: is my wife is just as good about paying bills as I am. The difference is, money was such a huge issue for her growing up. When she sees all that money going out every month, there would be 3 days of just anxiety, terror, and fear, because it's a scary thing. You know, existing off of a church income, which you guys will, half of your income is, but you know, for you, it's a scary thing, trusting that people are going to trust God, give to God. And that, and so we went to counseling for about 8 months, and literally finally she relinquished control. But you know what? I couldn't blow it. I could not miss a payment. She relinquished that to me, and I had to, you know, and so now I just, you know, tell her, okay, hey, here's how much money we have. But it took her, she's had to learn to trust me. So, like, we had a great house. We loved our house. She didn't want to move. That's where we're going to raise our kids. Well, the real estate market crashed in 2008.
Right.
And I told her, I said, we need to buy another house right now. She didn't want to. It was very uncomfortable for her. It was an extremely risky move. But I said, we're never going to see real estate crash 45% again. Now's the time to buy the house. I need you to trust me. She did it. And I said, I'll tell you what, we'll move. And in 2 years, when we make all this money back, we'll move back home. I need you to trust me. And she did, and it worked out. You know, we probably made, you know, our house is doubled in both our houses have doubled in value, and that's probably made us, you know, $800,000 because we made that move. But she had to trust me in that. But in order for that to happen, I needed to be faithful with tithing. I needed to be faithful with finances. You know, there's no late payments, nothing. And she, you know, she needed to trust me with that. And early on in our marriage, I made some stupid choices that caused her to doubt me. I made some selfish purchases, and that's the thing. Whoever's in charge of the money, you can't be selfish with the money.
Right.
You can't do that. And you know, there's some great things you can do where you have allowances. Tammy and I don't do that, but some couples have allowances. Some couples do his money, her money, which I don't. I just don't like that, because I think we need to be us as much as we possibly can. And if there's any way possible, I think that needs to be the goal. Not every couple does that. So, but again, just guys, look for ways that you can die to self.
That's good.
Look for ways. And that's Jesus leadership. How can I love you? How can I sacrifice? So when we first got married, man, I never missed a Lakers game. I never missed a San Francisco 49ers game. You know, my kids probably don't even know that the 49ers are my favorite team.
Interesting.
They don't have any. Do you know why? Because I had to die to that so I could say yes to them. You cannot be a fanatic football fan and a great dad.
Yeah.
You cannot do it.
Into that.
I would lose my mind
That does
and be
not work
depressed.
with little girls in the house.
No, dude, I would start yelling at the TV, and my girls would crying, Dad's going crazy. And I realized I got a problem. And what's funny is when Tammy and I were dating, when we were engaged, I lived with this couple in Huntington Beach, Bernie and June. I used to call it a weekend at Bernie's. I loved them. And, you know, they were the sweetest couple. They were probably in their mid to late 60s. All their kids were out of the house. And I just learned so much from them. And Bernie told me, you know, he used to be a huge Angels fan. And he never went to games. He was a huge Rams fan, never went to Rams games. And I said, why did you do that? And he said, I learned it wasn't making me better. And so he just got rid of it. And guys, I'm not saying you can't enjoy a game, But what I need now more than a game is time with guys.
Yep.
And so whether that's watching a game or it's, I need that time, but I need time with my son. And my son's, he plays basketball, but he doesn't watch basketball. And kids today just don't watch sports the way my generation did.
Yeah.
It's changed. And so I've got to engage with my kids where they are and do, like yesterday, you want to know what I did? You're going to laugh. You could probably never guess what I did yesterday.
I've stopped guessing long ago.
Yeah.
I went to Glen Ivy.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I went to Glen Ivy.
Treat yourself.
Wow.
Okay, the idea of sitting in a pool that smells like a fart and putting mud on my body, and I'm a germaphobe, sitting in water with other people,
Ooh.
So my wife said, hey, me and the girls are going to go to Glen Ivy. Do you want to come? And I was like, no, not in the least. But when am I going to get, how many more opportunities am I going to have just with my wife and my girls?
True.
Yeah.
Goes
So I said,
fast.
okay, I got to do one meeting and I can cancel the rest of the day. And I went there. Now I can't lay out like they can. I'm not Lobster. I cannot, ladies, men, very few men can lay out all day. Like,
Well, I just convinced Tyler it's an opportunity to nap outside.
Yeah.
And then change things for us. But
Yeah,
I was like,
so-
oh yeah, laying out is not, you just nap.
so we went to Glen Ivy. We laid out. They loved it. They went and got all pampered and they did all that stuff. And I think I made it till about 3:00 and I was like, okay, Dad's done. I cannot sit here any longer.
Yeah.
But it was great, being with them and just spending time with them. Had lunch with them.
Yeah.
Loved it and enjoyed it. And just you gotta do things to connect with your girls and to connect with your wife. And Tammy and I read a great book called A Grief Observed. And if you're looking for a great couple book, I think it's like 145, 150 pages. And this book is actually, the guy that wrote it is one of the best friends of Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and they were all friends. And this guy's a professor, I think, at the University of Virginia. So it's kind of the American side of just this philosophy and the thinking that Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were doing. But he writes about this book, and here's the commitment that he and his wife made. If you love it, I'm going to try to love it. And so whatever his wife was into, and that's actually why he became a Christian. He's like, this God thing is stupid. And so that's why actually in the book, there's letters back and forth with C.S. Lewis. He's like, look, you're a Christian, but I think this stuff's weird. Like, I think this is a cult. But I trust you as a guy. Here's my questions. And so in the book, there's these letters back and forth from C.S. Lewis.
Wow.
I can't think of the guy's name. It's like Vanden Bloomer or something like that.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. But the book is called A Grief Observed. That's not the name of the book. That's C.S. Lewis's
I was going
book.
to say, Grief Observed is C.S. Lewis's book.
Oh, shoot. What's the name of the book?
I don't know. We'll look it up.
Yeah.
We can look it up and we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. So, yeah. Not to give it away, but his wife dies, and you figure that out in the first chapter, and he's reflecting, A Severe Mercy. Jeez.
Okay.
The book name
I
is
think
A
you talked about that on
Severe
the show before.
Mercy. Yeah, actually, years ago, remember we used to do marriage conferences? We did the whole marriage conference just on that one idea that I'm going to try to understand and like what my wife likes. And ladies, man, if your husband's into sports, man, if there's any way you can connect with him on that, I would encourage you to do that. Try to join in him.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I did Ironman. So my wife's never going to do an Ironman. That's not her thing. But I felt so loved. I'll never forget. Like, I'm not a gifts guy. Like, I just don't care about gifts. But Tammy gave me a gift before my first Ironman. And I felt so loved by her and my kids. And they made T-shirts that said Iron Mat.
Oh, I remember those.
And they all
that's
wore them.
cool.
They all wore them that day. And, like it takes me about 12 hours to finish an Ironman.
Yeah.
So that's a long day for a family. Like, think about that. Like, you're up at, it's actually probably more like 14 hours. So the race time is between 11 and 12 hours. That's how long it takes me. But you have to get there an hour before. There's an hour after.
Right.
You got to get the throw up off your cheek. And if there's some stuff in your pants, you got to get that out. So,
Yeah.
things
It's appreciated.
happen.
That's a way to love your family.
Oh,
too.
dude, Ironmans are crazy,
man.
dude. So, but she did that for me, and I remember my first Ironman that I finished. I ran across the finish line, and I fell into her arms, and I felt so loved, and it's because she was a part of that. And so, trying to find ways to, be where she is. For example, like I just swore we were going to retire in Hawaii. My wife doesn't like Hawaii. So she likes the Northwest, she likes the mountains, and so just trying to connect with her in those places. and trying to do that, and not just like, okay, now it's your turn, but just actually like, man, so much of who my wife is a mountain girl, and trying to engage with her there, and learning to do that and not being selfish. Well, that's your thing. Well, if it's her thing, it's our thing. So just learning to do that. So what I would just say is, guys and gals, marriage is hard. Don't make it any harder by being a man or a woman. Try to be married. And what does that look like? And you need to change.
Yeah.
You know, you need to change who you are. So, I mean, within reason.
Right. Yeah.
I
No,
think changing her and like accepting who they are too, and meeting them there, like, and celebrating that. I think anytime I try to make Tyler do things or treat our house the way that I treat it, it's a recipe for like World War VI, probably. But the more I realized, like, oh, he functions completely different from me, and I could just let him be that way. Is way better for us than So we got another great questioning just on parenting in general, because it's about honoring your father and mother. Greg wrote and said, my boys are 2.5 years and 3 months old. Right now, our parenting is focused mostly on obedience to us. How do we begin the transition to help them gain wisdom and start making the right decisions on their own?
Yeah, so it's very, very difficult. And there's a great book by James Dobson, man. It's got to be 20 years old now, maybe 25 years old, and it's called Bringing Up Boys.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that book has sold millions of copies. And so that's a fantastic book, especially if you're a mama. I would read that, because you're raising a gender that's not you. And let me tell you this, ladies, you're great at raising girls. And if you're not careful, that's one of the things that's happening in our culture. Our culture is becoming effeminate in every way. That's a really, really difficult thing. And so, and the reason that's predominantly happening is our boys are being raised by girls. So there's a movie. When did Fight Club come out? 2002?
Yeah, probably
most women have never seen it.
Ago,
Like almost every guy has seen it.
We're not supposed to talk about it.
Yeah, we're not supposed to talk about it.
That's the one rule. First
But
rule.
Fight Club, there's like a pornographic sex scene in that. So I'm not suggesting that you go and watch that. But there's this great dialogue between Brad Pitt and who's the other guy, the other actor. He played Hulk.
Oh, man.
He's not as famous as he is now.
Yeah.
Edward Norton. There we go. Thank you. So Edward Norton and Brad Pitt's actually in the bathtub, which is just weird. And I think Edward Norton's sitting on the toilet, and they're just talking. And Edward Norton says, I don't feel like a man. He said, I feel like a boy who's playing pretend.
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt says in the tub, we're the first generation of men entirely raised by women. And Edward Norton says, yeah, I think maybe I need to get married. And Brad Pitt says, I'm not sure another woman's the answer. And so what it's saying is, men, what it's saying, think of this 20 years ago. Men need to help raise men. We are instrumental in the process of raising men. And unfortunately, like, when you think about what's happening at our college campuses, a lot of professors are not masculine. The men that are there are not masculine. It's now, everything is dominated by women in terms of professors and what's happening. And, and that's where things like toxic masculinity comes out. Signs that say, believe women. What happened to believe evidence? Believe truth. You know, I mean, think about what we're saying is so when a woman speaks, she's telling the truth. And I mean, it's, hopefully she is. I hope to God she is. But I've been fooled many times by women who've lied right to my face, and I'm their pastor. And likewise, men too. Men and women lie oftentimes when it's convenient. So we have to be really, really careful. So just know that we need to bring up boys. Boys are different. They're fundamentally different. They have a different chromosome, right? They have a Y chromosome, and they're different. Their bodies are going through testosterone. And so just know, a boy's testosterone is off the charts. I think it's at weeks 8 to 12 in the womb. So that's why women are giving birth to a boy. You're like, whoa, what's his chest hair? Well,
more testosterone than you're used to.
Yeah, your little boy in there is raging, man. And so that's just what's happening. And so that testosterone kind of dips until about the age of 2, and then it's kind of chill. So, right in there. But at 4 years old, man, there's a hard reset. And that may be why kindergarten starts at 5, because boys are not ready to be socialized, and they're just different. And then again, it hits hard. The pituitary gland signals to the testicles, fire that rocket up, And so anywhere from as early as 11 to 14, but by the way, boys are hitting puberty way later. Girls are hitting puberty way sooner.
Right.
So we got some real problems with our diets, our environment, all the things that are happening, all the toxins that we're taking into our bodies. Those are real problems. And that puts, think about it, if boys are hitting puberty later, they're even further developmentally behind. And that's a huge problem. So just know, wives, trust that your husband knows some things about boys that you don't know, and husbands, listens to your wife because you don't want to raise a terrorist. So I think that's important.
Huge, and I think for women to celebrate their men or their husbands as men, especially in front of your kids, like I've seen that a lot, where like even I see it in me, like, oh, like I want to control everything as mom, but I realize if I don't like start showing Ruth, like, no, dad is important to listen to. He's very like, he's smart. He has like things to say, and I listen to him. She's going to grow up thinking that men are stupid too. Like that's just like, I think a lot of us as women don't realize we are teaching our kids how to treat men. And so I think the more you can also just respect your husband and like celebrate masculinity in front of your kids will help your kids. Like if we're talking about boys don't want to grow up to be men. They've seen that everyone hates men. And so the more I think, even if women can start celebrating that in their husbands. Like
so I think, prior to probably Mary Poppins is the first movie in America where there's a dominant female who's smarter than everybody else. I don't know that there's, so typically like women are, beautiful, silly, they faint.
Right.
They're portrayed in media as the weaker sex in every sense of the word. And so Mary Poppins, I think, was that 1963, 64, right in there.
Sure. I mean, that's
a huge shift in our culture that then led to the women's movement, 8 years later, 1970, 71, which it needed to happen. I mean, we need to treat women, like not as silly, not as dumb, I think until the 1970s, a woman could not run in the Boston Marathon.
Really?
It was illegal. Women were not allowed. So, I mean, there were things that it was just abhorrent and like terrible. But we've gone too far, So let me give you an example. So women are not allowed to run in the Boston Marathon, which is criminal, right? It's criminal.
That's absurd.
Yeah, it's absurd. But here's what's absurd. Here where we are today. My son is in junior high school, and they have intramural flag football teams. They have 2 boys teams, 2 girls teams. Title IX. You have to have equal. How many boys do you think of a school of 2,000 signed up, or a school of 1,000 signed up for the boys flag football teams? Guess.
Oh, maybe a couple hundred?
Almost 300.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost 300 boys sign up for 2 boys teams. So let's say there's 12 boys on each team. So 24.
Yeah.
So 10%, less than 10% of the boys who signed up get to play. How many girls do you think signed up for flag football?
Oh, like 2.
I don't know.
9.
9?
They did not have enough girls
to do one team.
So why wouldn't they say, well, we're going to do more boys teams? Nope.
You're not allowed to.
Not allowed to. And it's just asinine. That's absolutely asinine.
Yeah.
And here's all the research.
Girl wants to go put herself out there and play sport. Yeah.
So girls should have every opportunity to play. And if they're able, they should be able to compete with men, especially in something like flag football. Now, if it's tackling, that's another issue. And that's why I'm opposed to wrestling. I don't know if you've seen like boys and girls wrestling each other. That boy in Utah, he just forfeited. And he's like, I'm not going to wrestle a girl.
Right.
And I'm like, why should a pubescent boy be in a situation where he potentially grabs a girl's private parts? That can happen. That is not right. I mean, I wrestled. Things rub that should not rub. It happens, man. I mean, it is.
It's involved.
That is an intimate sport. Let's just say that is
I did it
intimate.
too. I wrestled too.
That is 2 dudes way too close,
Yeah.
separated by spandex and united with sweat. Not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
That's an accurate description.
Yeah, dude. And oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I used to have friends that wouldn't shower for a week just so that their funk would be so bad that would be a weapon.
They
against the
just
other
make
guy.
me mad and wrestle harder. I don't know.
Can you imagine? And I just rub your face in my face.
No,
So here's what I'm saying is we desperately needed a women's movement. What we need now is not a men's movement. We need a movement that says, look, men and women matter. Men and women are different. And men and women both have something to say and something to offer. You can go to UC Irvine, and there are sociologists there who give lectures, write papers, and books that say, do we even need men? Think about that.
Yeah.
There was a book, I forget in what magazine, and then it was actually given a book, and it was called The End of Men. And it's just tragic.
Yeah. Well, Janie wrote in and said, even though men are made stronger, are women made to be more resilient when it comes to physical, mental, and emotional pain? What is that taking it? Does it take it that far to say that even though men are physically stronger, women are able to handle and be more resilient when it comes to physical, mental, emotional pain?
And I don't know. I'm not a geneticist. Here's what I would say is I think women have had to become that because there are no men. So a woman has to do everything now. So women are not only, earning income, they're moms, they're doing everything. Now they're coaching, they're doing so many roles because men are doing nothing. 40 years ago, I'm going to guess 99.9% of all clergy would have been men. And now it's 50-50. And I'm guessing pretty quick here, it's going to be 60-40 women to men. And so like women are doing everything now. I think it's a great time to be a woman. I think that, we're breaking through glass ceilings. Within my lifetime, we're going to see a woman president. I don't think Hillary Clinton was the best candidate. I think that you're going to get a stronger, healthier woman, and it actually may come from the other side versus the left. But we're going to see that. It's going to happen. Culture has changed. Culture has shifted. I think that'll be great. But like Ruth Bader Ginsburg is quoted as saying, we need 9 women on the Supreme Court. That's a problem. We don't need 9 women on the Supreme Court any more than we need 9 men.
Yeah.
We need both. We need a healthy balance, and maybe it rotates 4-5-5-4, 4-5-5-4. Because the founding fathers, it's intentionally off so that you can't have a tie
every time.
But like we need to understand that we need both, and we can't fight each other. We need to complement each other. So all I'm saying is that all the text is saying is men are physically stronger. That's all it's saying. Right. I think that men and women can be resilient based upon who they are. Right. What's happening nowadays, though, is men are cream puffs. That's just the reality. Men are weak. You see this 20% are infertile. The men who are fertile have half the sperm count as their dads. 33% of males are not fit for military service. Men are twice as likely to have ADHD. Men are more likely to be autistic. Like men die sooner. We have more problems. We have more issues. Like our men are struggling, and that's largely due to the fact that we pay zero attention to men and men's health issues. I said we have 7 departments of health for women. Think about it. In the NFL, they wear pink. I don't know if it's for a month or a week for breast cancer awareness. Did you know that men's testicular cancer is growing at a rate? They don't even know what to do. They don't know what to do. And nobody talks about, like women know how to squeeze their breast from every angle. Like boys are never taught, hey, have you checked your nuts out lately? Have you felt them? Have you touched them? Have you rolled them around in your fingers? Because that's killing guys. Like in the same way a woman has to examine her breasts, a man has to look at his testicles because it's a huge problem. And dudes are all weird about that, right? I mean, guys, we die of prostate cancer. Nobody wants to go get a finger up the rectum. Well, okay, me neither, but the alternative is dying a horrible death, or they fix it and they cut the nerve and your penis doesn't work. That's how they fix that problem. So do you want to get a finger up there and have your penis work, or like we need to tell the truth to guys, right? Yeah. Like I think most men would choose an erection over an awkward interaction with a doctor that, I don't know, lasts 30 seconds. Yeah. But guys don't talk about it. Yeah. And that's part of the reason that our guys are dying is because we don't have awareness, and we just don't, and we need to help men understand this. And ladies, you need to care about this because men are dying of rectal and colorectal cancer in their 20s now. Yeah. In their 20s. This is a disease that was killing men in their 50s and 60s 2 generations ago. And now guys are getting this and testicular cancer in their 20s and in their 30s. Mental health issues are off the charts. And by the way, you need to talk to your kids about vaping, all the chemicals that are in there. Guys are twice as likely to vape, twice as likely to try marijuana. Marijuana affects boys specifically in their puberty years when their brain is changing. And so all this stuff, man, you're far more likely to have a psychotic episode if you smoke marijuana, whether you're a male or female. Nobody hears that. It affects your brain, and it affects us differently. Like think about a drug, any drug. It'll say, here's what the drug does. It's effective in 90% of the cases. In 5%, it has this negative effect. In 10%, the problem is we don't have that research with marijuana.
Right.
And we need that because it does negative. And you don't know.
Yeah.
It's Russian roulette. You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like you and I both have EpiPens because we're special.
Right.
So you don't know what marijuana is going to do to you. You
Right.
just don't know. And we all, and here's why, guys. You know, for most of human history, we lived in one place. We lived with our people group.
Yeah.
We never went anywhere. We lived and died. Think about this. Jesus never went further than 50 miles from home.
Yeah.
Or 60 miles. I don't know how far Nazareth is to Cairo. So maybe 80 miles. The Son of God.
But still,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he always ate the same foods, same bees, same birds, same dates. Like he ate the same thing every day, every single day. Now we're multicultural. We're all over the place. And we've talked about genders are not the same. Ethnicities are not the same.
Yeah.
Like nobody talks about that. Certain ethnicities are more likely to get some diseases than the other. And now we're eating everybody's food. We're doing all these things. Well, so I'm just saying, you just can't say, well, marijuana is good for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, it might help cancer patients, but it might make you crazy. So,
Yeah.
wow, that was like a rant.
That was good.
That was good though.
Yeah.
We hit a lot. That's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
So then Elise wrote in and says, I know people who say that they believe that men and women are made in the image of God, and therefore they develop a theology that there is a mother God. I disagree with their interpretation. However, there are feminine and masculine illustrations to help us understand God's attributes. So why is God father and not mother?
Well, God is Father because he tells us to call him Father. So that's where you got to start.
Right.
Like God gets to, we have to call God whatever he wants.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and so part of this is Adam is created first. And so there's a spiritual headship that comes. So think about God. There's plural leadership, a singular headship. So God is Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Plural leadership, singular headship. Both the Son and the Spirit are subject to the Father. So when you read John 3:16, for God the Father so loved the world that he sent his only Son. The Son, Jesus says, I do not do what I want, but as the Father wills. So Jesus, who is co-equal with God, co-eternal with God, is subjective to God. So there's a governance in heaven. The devil didn't like it.
Right.
He didn't like it. He didn't like submitting
Right.
to God. That's part of the reason, we joked a little bit, but why did the devil talk to Eve, which is the only good conversation
Right.
you could get. But I also think the devil had, he understood Eve's perspective. You've been made second. You're created second. You don't like. So when you look at the text, the devil says, "Did God really say?" Well, when you look at it, God didn't say it to Eve. He said it to Adam. So she's having to choose to trust Adam with what he told her. So Adam is told about not eating of the fruit before she's created. So it's trust. Is that really, is that what's really happening? And so
Yeah.
the temptation is, here's what's going to happen, Eve. If you eat this fruit, you're going to be elevated. You're not going to be subjective anymore. And so guys, this is very, very uncomfortable, especially for people who are egalitarian, right? There's no difference between men and women. My perspective is complementarian. We're different. That's our perspective. And listen to me. In the same way, ladies, I don't believe in gay marriage. Okay, I don't, because I can only teach what the Bible says I can teach. I'm not allowed to go off of my own opinions, my own riffs. I believe that men have a spiritual headship. So let me just give you an example. Children are 80% more likely to attend church as adults if the father goes.
Wow.
Doesn't mean men are better. It doesn't. It just means there is a spiritual quotient that we can't see that our children are aware of.
Right. Yeah.
If dad goes to church, I'm going to go to church. And so, ladies, you just have to understand that you have power, you have authority, you have giftedness. What your husband does matters. Here's the other news that's terrible. So most divorced families are led by female households. So the mom raises the kids.
Right.
Here's the statistics. Kids do better when they're with dad. And don't believe me. I just read it in a feminist book called The Boy Crisis by Warren Farrell. That's what he says. So the courts have sided with moms, but here's what happens. What happens when a mom can't control their kid? Do you know what they do? They send them to dad. Kids are craving that spiritual leadership. Now, what I'm saying, ladies, I'm not saying you should give up your kids. So the majority of our audience on the debrief is women because ladies are killing it and guys are sucking it. That's just the reality. We're a wreck. Here's what you need to do is figure out, as long as the husband's not dangerous, if he's dangerous and he's abusive, don't go there.
Right.
But if you just think he's whatever, here's the reality. Don't talk bad about him and try to find ways to get him in your life. Just understand, we have all kinds of social programs for mothers with children who are struggling. Do you know how many programs we have for dads? Zero. Do you know what we do with dads who can't pay child support? They go to jail, which helps, of course, them raise money.
Right.
They're deadbeat dads, they're terrible, whatever. Putting them in prison is not helping.
Right.
There are some places in the South where like 20% of those incarcerated are deadbeat dads. So we're going to pay $70,000 a year to incarcerate your dad when what we should be doing is helping him. Think about how that $70,000 could be helping him get training, get a job, and again, I'm not talking about violent guys. I'm just talking about a deadbeat dad that doesn't get it. Maybe he has a drug problem. Maybe he's fallen on tough times. Maybe he can't read. So think about it. Only 20% of boys in 8th grade can read and write at a grade level. What does that mean for career opportunities?
Not great.
It's not good.
Yeah.
If you can't read, you can't write. Guess what that means? You can't think well.
Yeah.
So men are struggling to get jobs. We've moved from a muscle economy to a mental economy to a microchip economy. A lot of men are not doing well. And so here's the other thing. In jobs that men typically feel like, hey, I can do that, police work, firemen, we've created quotas. So now there's less jobs for men. So, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have female firefighters or female police officers. I'm just saying when we create quotas in jobs, here's the other lie, is that genders are equally attracted to certain jobs. It is just not true. It's not true.
Yeah.
So like, for example, most counties in America have volunteer fire departments. Almost 100% of those volunteers are men. It doesn't mean that women don't want to be firemen. It just means if they got to do it for free,
probably not going
to do it. So, guys are built, men are built-in risk takers. And so what happens to a lot of guys is they've risked and lost and they just give up. And so here's the thing you need to know, ladies. When a man makes less, he feels worth less. So much of who your husband is tied up in him as a provider, him as an income earner. And ladies, for some of you, it means a lot. For most of you, it does not. Like we were talking before the show, when my girls were going to college, I tried to push them into high income earning degrees.
Programmers.
My girls could care less about how much money they got to make. And I did everything everything I could.
I went to college. That was the last thing on my mind. I went, I majored in sociology. I was like, that sounds interesting to me. Like I was going to be a doctor, but I don't like biology. So I'll do this because it's interesting. I was not thinking at all about how much money I was going to make.
Yeah.
So a lot of you ladies have heard about the wage gap, right? So a woman earns 77 cents on the dollar for a man. The problem is they're not honest with how they come up with that. So I was sharing with you guys before the show that British Airlines just came out with a stat saying that men make way more money than women. And there was this big hubbub and, oh my gosh, inequality.
Yeah.
Well, let me just ask both of you, who do you think makes more money, a flight attendant or a pilot?
Yeah, you're going to go pilot.
Yeah, pilot makes like 3 to 4 times more money. So here's how they came up with that.
I want them to be educated.
They just simply added all the employees together. And said, oh, wait a minute, our men are making way more. So here's the question we need to ask. Is a female pilot making less than a male pilot? Is a female flight attendant making less than a female flight? Is it? And they don't do it that way, and it's intentional. And it gets our attention, and nobody actually does the math. And so, ladies, like when you're talking to your girls about college, you really need to talk through this. And I lost this fight, so maybe you'll do better. But when you look at the top 10 college degree income earnings, so if you get this degree, you're going to make more money than everybody else. 9 of those are dominated by men. Even with 60% of our collegiate attendance is women. Still, the top income earning degrees are still dominated by men. If you look at the bottom income earning degrees, like early child development, not a lot of dudes in that. You're not going to make a lot of money in that degree. Now, maybe if they change and we have education drops down to 3 and 4 year olds, maybe that's going to rise. But it's just a real problem. Women tend to choose degrees that are more flexible, give them more time for family, which by the way, ladies, is a good thing. Men are boneheaded. And we pick jobs where we're away from our families and we have terrible marriages and we're miserable and depressed. Listen to me, ladies. 49% of men, when surveyed, said they would rather have a job that paid less and gave them more time with their families.
Yeah.
So they're miserable.
Yeah.
So they're miserable, and that's part of the thing is, you know, there's been a glass ceiling in the workplace for women, but there's also a glass ceiling in the home for men, and we got to allow men. Hey, it's okay to make a little less money, so that we can spend more time with our kids. And men feel pressure. Many men, you know, and that's why guys don't get married. Ladies, this is why they're not interested in being married. They're not interested in having kids because they're scared to death of that responsibility.
Yeah.
Man, we had a guy a couple years ago in our church kill himself like a couple of weeks before his wedding. Wow. And he wrote in his note, he felt like he wasn't ready. He couldn't be a provider.
Oh man, I feel like so much of this comes back to how many things point back to your identity in Christ, whether that's solid or it's not. Right? If it's solid, you're in a relationship or you're in a marriage, and maybe the wife starts to make more money than you do, rather than celebrating. Like, how do you respond to that? I think would be a good indicator of, are you anchored in Christ or are you not? Yeah. My wife started making more money than I did. And I was like, way to go, babe. Woo!
Yeah. Now we have more money.
You go, girl. Yeah. But
that's good.
I know that's not always the case.
But you're a very secure man. You were also raised in a Christian home. You had a loving mom and dad. And so think about your advantages.
Right.
So like, again, your identity, you know, has to be in Christ. Right. And so let me just be clear. I mean, if some of our women are like crashing their cars, like man, if you want to hear what I'm saying, if you want to make as much money as a pilot, be a pilot.
Right.
And
you should.
Yeah, and you can, and you should. And let me just say this. I think women pilots are better. Like every time I see a women pilot, and here's why. They communicate more. So if we're having turbulence, they're going to tell me what's going on. They're going to, like, literally, a female pilot will communicate 10 times more.
That's
like
true.
Like if your plane is going down, the dude is not telling you anything.
Yeah.
The other thing is I think women pilots land a plane softer. Like I'm telling you,
because we care about how you feel.
I am telling you, there is. I don't have the statistics to back this up. But every time I get on the plane and there's a lady flying it, I get a little, I just score. Because I just think they're better. I just do.
Yeah.
And, you know, it used to be, with the way planes were designed, women were not physically able, especially when everything was cables.
Right.
To, like, if that nose goes down, you had to, I forget what, like 120 pounds of pressure to pull the nose up.
Wow.
Like, so now with computers, we've taken away the physical barrier, and so now women can do that. And I wanted to hug. We landed in Cusco, which Peru is one of the most terrifying places to land in the world. It's like 12,000 feet in the air. You have to land in this valley between what are the mountains of South America?
Machu Picchu?
No, the Indies. It's called the Indies. So we call it the Rockies here, but it's in the Indies.
The winds whip up in Cusco. It's nuts.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Like I was like, thought I was going to meet
awful.
Jesus.
Yeah.
This woman landed this plane, and I wanted to hug her. It was so good. It was so good.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were on the ground.
Oh, that is good.
That's the best. Like,
I was like, are we still floating? Are we still floating? And then we stopped, and I'm like, what just happened?
Wow.
You have been blessed by a female pilot.
There you go.
And guys, I'm not saying you can't fly. I'm just saying you don't land as good.
Yeah. Well, and I think that identity piece even speaks into, like, I was looking back at, like, I think it's Janae's question about, like, if men are stronger, like, what do women get then? Like, and I feel like the lie that we tend to believe as women is like, well, like, if they're stronger,
you
they're
get
better.
to make all the people. How's that? Like, everybody in this room, raise your hand if you were made by a woman.
That's all of us.
Right? Yeah. I mean, you make all the people. That's pretty cool.
Right. Oh, yeah. But I think that's what, like, and the lie that, like, women want to believe is like, well, like, you know, well, I need to be, like, why do I have to be the weaker one when, like, that's not
just physically. That's all it means. Physically. Right. And I mean, marry a weak dude. You know?
Yeah. But no woman actually wants to do that. So.
Well, okay. And just so you know, here's what the research shows. You know what a feminist wants? Strong man. Because strong women are miserable when they're married to a weakling.
Yeah.
And so, like, I read this article in the New York Times, and it was a feminist who's just is fed up because these guys have no opinion about where to go, what to eat, what to do. Like, they just, and she's just like, what happened? I'm like, well, congratulations, you won.
Yeah.
You won. And now you got a bunch of pushover dudes. And so part of the problem is many women want a strong man without him being a man. And so you
Right.
have to like that's, you know, like my mom's a strong woman. So I was really drawn to strong women. Like I just, like girls that were just wimpy. Yeah. Like my mom is like, I'm a woman, hear me roar. So my wife, you know, strong, counterphobic 6, but part of that drives me nuts. But I want her to be strong and a woman.
Right.
So I have to take the good with the bad. And I think that's what you have to take with men too, is
for
if you
sure.
want a strong man, well, that's going to come, they're not Jesus.
Right.
So there's going to be like, there's some give and take there.
Yeah.
And
I remember
and-
thinking that, like, oh, like I want a strong man. But then, like, the first time Tyler like called me on something or told me no on something or said like, no, like we're not doing it that way. I was like, oh my gosh, no, like you're supposed to submit to everything I want. Like I want you to be strong, but I don't want you to like oppose me.
I don't
ever.
want you to actually lead.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I
that's
realized
the
like I
thing
had to
is,
check
ladies,
myself there.
is figure out leadership together. And so I didn't even get to this on Sunday because I didn't want to have women throw fruit at me. But like, here's the thing is, in a marriage, like both people have a view. What's your point of view? And that's important. Both people have a voice. But then how do you vote? It's 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so we both get a vote. Now what do you do?
Right.
Well, we do nothing and we fight forever. Well, here's what I want you to see is we have a federalist system, but a democracy in our country. Everybody voted. How happy are we?
Yeah. Not so much.
And here's the thing is nobody's ever happy. The person who loses is always ticked. So like everybody hated Obama for 8 years, right? Now everybody hates Trump. Voting doesn't bring peace. What brings peace is submission to God. And let me just say this, as Tammy's husband, I can only think of one time in 23 years I've said, you're going to submit. One time. Because here's the thing, if I win, I lose.
Yeah.
Like it's a loss for me. Like
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. When one gender wins, the other loses. But we have to decide, like, okay, who has the ultimate say? Well, the first answer is God. God has the ultimate say. Well, then who's responsible for God's vote?
Right.
Husbands, it's you. And so here's the thing. So Tammy and I, we brought in her niece. We love her. And it was a great thing. We felt led by God to do this.
Yeah.
Well, we brought in a woman into our house who wasn't raised by my wife. And it was like 4th of July, like, and my wife's like, I'm done. I'm done. This is over. You know, and it was literally, we had a tough week. I'm just going to, in Tammy's favor, we had a tough week. And I had to say, we are not kicking her out. But and I said, it doesn't matter what you want. And here's why. We asked God. God said, that's what we're going to do.
Right.
That's what we're going to do. And, you know, because at the end of the day, what's important and really what the husband's role is, and that's what went wrong in the garden. Where's Adam? Adam should have said, no. God said we shouldn't eat this.
Right.
And Eve says, hey, this looks really good. And Adam says nothing. So it's not that Adam should have said, hey, Eve, you got to submit to me. Adam's role in that is to say, Eve, the Lord said,
Right.
don't eat this. And he says nothing, which is what men do. And guess what happens? We fall apart.
Yeah.
We fall apart. And so it's not about men being in charge. It's about God being in charge. And so we have to figure that out. And especially if, you know, many of you women, you know, you are the better leader. You are the stronger person. You are the Christian. You are the breadwinner. So here's the win is how do I help my man not to be emasculated? And by the way, when you have a controlling wife who makes all the decisions, you're emasculating him. That's what's happening. So how do I find ways where I can submit to him? And you guys, you've seen me do this at Sandals. I do this all the time. I haven't done this with you yet. Stephanie's heard me say this. I will say this to staff. So do you guys know? Do you know who's in charge of Sandals?
Do I
Jesus,
know
then
who's
you.
in charge?
Yeah, it's me.
Okay. Yeah.
If you didn't know that,
I feel
it's
like
me.
that was a trick
Yeah.
question. I wanted to say you, but I
You
was
can
like,
say
I feel
God.
like
You can say
you're-
Jesus.
But God's appointed me.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Right.
Stephanie's heard
Yeah.
me say this. We'll be in meetings and I will say to somebody who works for me, I'm going to submit to that. I'm going to submit to that. She's heard me say that. And they're always like, oh, what's he doing? What I'm doing is, I may not agree, but I'm going to submit to your authority. I'm going to submit to your giftedness. I'm going to submit to your skill set
Sure.
because I'm trusting you in this.
Right.
And here's the thing is, at some point, I am in charge. I am the leader. They're going to need to submit and trust to me.
Right.
And so whenever I have the opportunity to submit to that. So here's how I lead my family. If there's any way possible for me to give Tammy what she wants, I'm going to do it. Man, I am going to do everything I can to submit to her desires, her passions, her heart. Man, if there's any way possible I can die to her,
Right.
for her, I'm going to do that. And so then when I say, hey, I need you to hear me out. I need you to trust me on this. She can do that because she's seen a pattern of him dying to himself.
Yeah.
And so what I would say, ladies, especially if you're the stronger person, which happens, you've got to find a way. Where can I submit to him? Where can I let him choose? Where can I give him freedom to feel like a man?
Yeah, because not everything has to be your call to time. I remember like one of the coolest moments in our marriage, like Tyler had one of those moments of like, hey, like I need to step in here and kind of pull the husband card and say like, no, I think we're doing this way. And I remember him saying, I will take full responsibility. He's like, I know you're worried everything's going to go wrong because I made this. He's like, I will take full responsibility of whatever happens on the other side of this decision. It's on me. And I remember that like freed me out to be like, okay, like one, I had to say like, okay, I can't come back and be like, you made this decision and now look at all the, he's like, no, he's like, I will take responsibility. If we need to change, we'll change. And like, I remember that freed me up and was like, okay, like, so I loved that he not only came in and said like, all right, I'm pulling the husband card this one time.
Yeah.
But I love that he also backed it up with like, okay, but like, I will also take responsibility. And like, that was one of the lessons for me to learn, like, okay, everything doesn't have to be in my control. I don't have to make every decision. I don't have to be in charge of everything. And it was freeing. It was freeing for me to realize like, oh, I can actually, it's like this is how God made it and I can trust him and it's probably going to be okay.
Well, and so here's the other thing is, especially like with finances, you know, I would ask, like, I don't know if that was a financial decision. So if I was your wife and you were the husband and you said that to me, I would say, okay, is this something that you're passionate about, or is this something you feel like God is leading?
Yeah.
And so then I would say as a wife, and so this is, so again, ladies, what I would do is, man, I would immerse yourself in a word by word study with what Mary does to Jesus. That man, there's a whole book in there. How do you lead the Son of God? She just did it.
Yeah.
Like she just led God. And, you know, because he says hey, this is not my time.
Not my time.
This is not my time. And she's like, okay. And she tells the servants,
do whatever he says. Yeah.
She doesn't like, so here's what I would say is, you know, especially wives, I think God has, what is the giftedness of the woman? Usually you're more interested in security. Guys are going to take more risks. So when it comes to a financial decision, guys, you got to have the wife on board because you might risk the whole family's thing. And so what I would say as a wife is, I say, hey, let's get some advice from somebody that you respect and that would make me feel more comfortable with this decision. I want to support you on this. Don't even use the word submit. I want to support you on this, but I would be more comfortable if we had somebody else that came in this decision and not a friend, not a co-investor. Like one time, oh my gosh, when we were young and, you know, Tammy's parents, they got into this scheme, you know, to make money. And you know, so that, you know, you come over, the guy gives a spiel and everybody, oh, we're all in, we're all going to be millionaires. This is great. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. And Tammy's dad said, I'll give you the $1,000 to buy in. And I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And so maybe that's another time where I just, maybe that was the second example. And I hurt my wife's feelings, you know, it embarrassed her in the moment. Everybody did it. That guy went to jail. The guy went to jail for 20 years for fraud.
The guy that started
the company, and he ripped everybody off. Wow. I have a good sense. God's given me a sense. So like think a spiritual gift for sniffing out BS. So like if you know me and you're going to do a business venture, just say, hey, I'm thinking about this. Be completely honest. Because if I don't think you want me to be completely honest, I'm just going to let you throw your life away. I just do it. Because I've watched so many friends, they're making a decision. I'm like, that ain't going to work. That is not going to work. I don't know why it is. God has blessed me with a nose for the right decisions. And it's not me. It's the Lord. It's God's mercy. It's God's grace. It's discernment. And you got to find people who are usually right.
Yeah.
Like, don't listen to people that are usually wrong. And that's what I tell Tammy. I said, okay, am I usually right or wrong? You know, my kids and my family are always Googling. I don't trust him. And I'm like, okay, tell me when you got the answer. And they're like, and it's like, well, God's blessed me with, you know, photographic memory. When I know something, I know something. Like we one time, dude, we were playing Trivial Pursuit and they told me I got the answer wrong. And I was like, I'm not wrong. And they're holding the card up. The card says, I said, the card is wrong. And everybody got all ticked off. So we had to Google it, and the card was wrong. I said, I know what I know. If I don't know, I don't know. But I know what I know.
Yeah.
And I know who won, the 200 meters in the Olympics in Atlanta in 1996.
Of course you do.
And his name was Michael Johnson. I don't care what the card says.
Drop the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also set a world record, ran it in sub 20 seconds. I said, what else do you want to know? So
That's
my
when
wife
you start.
drives- it
Well, that's
drives-
when you
yeah.
start to get into. You can be right and wrong at the same time, right? We've talked.
Yeah,
about
I have
that.
the spiritual gift of being an ass.
The little 3 comes in there.
Yeah,
My
so-
husband has that with people, though. He can always like,
Yeah,
he's like,
well,
oh,
okay,
that
but
person.
my
You're like,
wife, okay, let's talk about her giftedness. She's got a nose for dirtbags. She sniffs it out. She just knows. And I've learned, man, she's right. If she doesn't like somebody, if somebody makes her uncomfortable,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, I don't agree, but historically, Tammy has been very right on this, and I'm going to submit to that. So if somebody makes her uncomfortable, we're done.
Yeah, I've learned that with
that's
Tyler.
good.
I'm like, he's probably right. I hate it when he's always right.
Yeah. Well,
I'm a 9, so I'm always like,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm sure they're fine. They're okay.
Yeah,
Then a few months
Tammy's
later,
pretty good at sniffing people out, and I just have to trust that. And I've made mistakes, and that's the other thing is learn. Like as you're getting married, you're learning like who's good at what, and how do we do this. And again, so guys, spiritually speaking, like your wife has a view, your wife has a voice, and those are going to be different than yours. But you guys got to make a vote, and hopefully we can come to a consensus. And so my goal is always that we agree on it. And so usually what that means, unfortunately, is I lose. But I'm losing so the marriage can win. And so hopefully Tammy's going to get to the point where she can lose so the marriage wins. And so that's why marriages don't make it. The more modern the nation, the worse the marriages. The worst marriages on earth, Japan, America, Australia, New Zealand, Western Europe. We're terrible at it because I'm a woman, I got to win. I'm a man, I got to win. And it's like, well, okay, now you both lose.
Yeah.
The two shall become one flesh. And what God has joined together, let no one divide. Well, oftentimes it's the husband and the wife who've entered into the covenant that divide it. And so, and so just early on, ladies, especially if you're married to a young guy, I did stupid stuff. And that's why Tammy wouldn't relinquish the finances. And you know what? She was right not to, because I was an idiot. I was an idiot. And I did dumb things. I bought cars that we couldn't afford. And that's part of the reason why I don't drive fancy cars, because I'm just trying to show her, Tammy drives a nicer car than me. That's fine, because she's more important. Our family's more important. Our safety's more important. I'll drive whatever.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So you wanted to talk about this one. We're going to totally shift gears here. You want to talk about one more question before we wrap up?
long episode. Jeez.
Hopefully you guys are sticking with
Yeah.
us. But you want to talk about this. So a few weeks ago, Antoinette wrote in and said in service, you mentioned that Christian people who love Jesus and go to church will truly love you. When you were saying those things, I felt like you were saying true believers would love me more than non-believers. That didn't sit well with me because I have many people in my life who are not believers, but they truly love me. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So what I would say is what that probably means is you have really great relationships with very, very healthy people. But here's the thing. As much as those people love you, as much as they care about you, their love for you would increase if they came to Christ. It would be deeper. It would be better. It would be more sacrificial for you.
And why do you say that?
Because God is love.
Yeah.
And so we can be loving, but the true definition of love is self-sacrifice, self-giving, and denying of self. So husbands love
everything
your
we've been
wives.
talking about this whole
Husbands
time.
love your
Exactly.
wives as Christ loved the church. It's learning to say no to yourself. And the person that helps us do that is God.
Yep.
And that process begins. So becoming a Christian is literally saying no to self. So Jesus says, if any man would come after me, let him first deny himself, pick up his cross, which is daily, and follow me. So the Christian is learning and practicing to say no to self. Now, having said that, you can grow up in a Christian home that's very unhealthy. So they have the Christian label, but they've not said no to themselves.
Right.
So, and I think this is the thing that's hard. So let's say you grow up in a Christian family that's very dysfunctional and very unhealthy. And so let me explain the Christian life for you. The Christian life is moving from good to healthy to whole. That's the process. And that's why so many people don't think that, well, I don't need to be a Christian. I'm a good person. Okay, well, that's the minimum requirements for a human being. You're a good person. What do we mean by that? I don't kill people. I don't steal people. I pay my tax. Okay, you're good. Now we want you to move to healthy.
Yeah.
So So good people who pay their taxes, who don't cheat, who don't lie, can have terrible marriages, be bad dads, be bad people, not have any friends, and be incredibly lonely because they're not healthy.
Right.
So good people that become healthy people are good people that have dealt with the bad things in their life. So then healthy people, right? I'm on the process. What I'm moving towards is wholeness, which we use another word for it. It's holiness. So be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. That word means completeness or wholeness. That's what we're moving towards. Now, ultimately, that doesn't happen until we're reunited with God. But that's the process that we're moving towards is wholeness. And so I think I've always been a good person. I had an internal compass. Not everybody has that, but I had that. I had to start to move. So being real wasn't moving from bad to good. It was moving from good to healthy. And so that meant I had to deal with some bad things in my life. Some bad things that I did, but mostly just some really, really unhealthy things as a 3. And that unhealth, right? So on some Enneagrams, right, it's healthy, unhealthy.
Right.
What's the other word that they use?
Resourceful.
Resourceful, unresourceful. So it's dealing with the unresourceful, the things that don't help you.
Yeah.
And there are things in every person's life that are not helpful.
Yeah.
And most of that in relationships is we're too concerned about being first, about being seen, because we're insecure. We're not whole. So insecurity comes from a lack of wholeness. My identity is in my clothes, my things, my money, my wife, the way they look. And this is why guys leave their wives when they get older. Well, she's not pretty because I'm insecure. And if I don't have a beautiful young wife, what does that make me?
Yeah.
Which the Bible says, do not forsake the wife of your youth. It actually says, remember her breasts always. One of my favorite verses.
I know that one
Yeah,
well.
it's a good one. So actually it says, remember the breasts of her youth.
Right.
So God's word is good. Amen. But we're moving in this process. And so here's what I would say is you're super blessed that you have good relationships. What I would encourage you to do is to help other people experience that by getting in a group. So what I'm going to guess is she's probably not in a group because she gets her community outside of church. And so what that means is you're not providing community for people in church. So you're actually sinning. You're denying people the opportunity to be in a relationship with a person who's used to healthy and whole relationships. Most of the people in our church have not done that.
Yeah.
So some people go from bad to good. I was a bad person. And those are the testimonies when we were kids. I was tore up from the floor up, And so we talk about good to bad. But Jesus, the rich young ruler, all these things I've done since I was a little kid. Jesus is like, okay, so you're a good person. So let's move from good to healthy. There's one thing that you lack. Sell all those good things and come and follow me. I'm
rich.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
He's not a bad person.
Yeah.
He's just not healthy. And he certainly isn't whole. Because what does he say? Sell all that you have, that come and follow me, and you will have wealth in heaven. You're going to be whole. You're going to get everything that you want. I can't do that.
Yeah.
He's not a bad guy. And so the gospel isn't just for bad people. It's for good people who aren't healthy and who aren't whole. And so, that's why when Jesus, tries to bring somebody to Christ, he says different things to different people.
Yeah.
So Nicodemus, and this is what's so sad about the born again passage, Nicodemus is the best of the best, but he's not born again. He's not whole. There's something that you lack. You've not been born from above.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? And no amount of effort. And not only that, but Jesus is saying this incredibly good person, this incredibly healthy person is missing what he's missing. Remember, Nicodemus doesn't get it. Now he gets it at the end because he becomes a follower, but it's like, what are you talking about? And Jesus says, how can you see the wind? You know what the weather's going to be, but you don't realize that all your attempt to be good, to be healthy is actually revealing what you can't do. And that's what the law does when I really, really pursue it. Like if you want to know how much of a hold food has over you, go on a diet. Try to eat better. And then you'll go, oh my gosh, I'm an addict.
Yeah.
I'm a sugar addict. I'm a caffeine addict. I'm a wheat addict. Try to eliminate anything and you'll realize you lack a lot of discipline. And so
it's not to say that a non-believer can't truly love someone.
No.
But you're defining more of the depth.
Well, and there are multiple facets to relationships. And so I think she shares an emotional bond with these people. She might share a physical bond. She's missing out on a spiritual bond.
Yeah, that's good.
And so, and you say, well, why does that matter? Well, imagine a marriage, we're all married, where there's no sex. There's not wholeness there.
Yeah.
And so in relationships, you can love them, physically, like I really love you, I really care for you emotionally. But if you're not a Christian, then that we're missing what's most important. And that's all I'm saying.
No,
So
that's good.
great question.
Awesome. Well, if you haven't had a chance yet to see this week's message or hear it, highly recommend it.
Yeah, pray for me,
good
man, because
stuff.
the arrows are firing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of hot topics, but man, stuff that is good for us to talk about.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, if you guys have follow-up questions from that message, from what we've been talking about today, please send those in. Debrief.show is your place to get all the resources, ask your questions, follow up, share some stuff from this episode. We can't wait to see you next time.
Yeah, love you guys.